going live today to do an unboxing and talk about the supplies that you're going to get because I'm trying something new with how I do the tutorials. I want to make it as easy, less time, and less overwhelm for you guys to get in and do your joy box. And so we're going to go back to the pre-recorded, but I want to break it up into sections because a lot of you are seasoned joy boxers, and so you know a lot of the techniques that we use. There's a lot of techniques that we use every month. And so my thought is I would do a pre-recorded and I'd break it up into the different stages. And let's say it's, the first stage is painting the background. Well, if you know how to do that, you are, comfortable creating that faux stain or painting the background, etc., etc., you can skip ahead. You can sit and work on your project until you get to the point where you might want to chime in or tune into a certain chapter or section in the tutorial, in hopes that that helps you guys want to sit and craft, and it's less overwhelming for you. But I still wanted to come live and visit with you guys monthly. Like I said, the idea is to create a system that works for everybody, for the new crafter to the experienced crafter. Everyone can get in, find what they need quickly, efficiently, less overwhelm, so you guys can just sit and enjoy crafting. So part of that, because I want to still go live to be able to chat with you guys on a monthly basis and just touch base and have just kind of more of a chat session, we're going to do an unboxing. This is where I'm going to talk about what's in your box and the supplies that you're going to need. We will do this either on the day the boxes ship or the day after the boxes ship, that first week of the month. That way you can start gathering your supplies. You know what you're getting. You don't have to wait for your piece of paper from the box, because I'll have created this little chat session with you guys. And then that, in hopes, gets you excited to craft, and you're gathering your supplies, so when you get your box, you can sit down and enjoy that. So that is kind of where we're at, and I would love to hear what you guys think. If you have any ideas on how to make it better, how I can help you get crafting more, how I can make it easier, all those things. So throw those in the comments and let me know. This month, let's just talk about the box now. Is our Autumn Vibes pumpkin sign, and I love this take on the pumpkin. It's kind of a farmhouse rustic plus a little glam. So farm glam, farmhouse glam, whatever you want to call it, but we're incorporating some gold foil this month, and that was kind of the surprise. I didn't reveal that in all of the public posts that I do. This month we are playing with gold foil, and to be honest, I haven't really done a lot with gold foil, but I love it, and I've, last month I kind of did some testing with it, and it is so fun. And just adds a little extra to your project. So I don't know if you've seen, you can Pinterest it if you want, gold foil pumpkin. And you've got people who take, whether it's a real pumpkin or a fake pumpkin, but they paint it white or they paint it a tan color, and then they gold foil on it, and it just looks so cool, so cool. So that's kind of the inspiration behind this. Now, I also wanted to make it so in case you are more of Halloween-y decorating, you could take this and paint the pumpkin black. You could paint it orange and, you know, put a spooky face on it. I mean, you could really take this project and make it Halloween-y for sure. You could remove the autumn vibes and just center the pumpkin. You could remove the autumn and just put vibes. So it's pumpkin vibes, you know, and especially if it's a Halloween theme, you could do that too. So a lot of different ways that this project could go if you're just doing a fall decorating versus if you love to decorate for Halloween. So a lot of different ways this can go. So let me just kind of bring this up and show you. See if I can get that gold foil. Let me see here. I need to see what you're seeing. There we go. You can kind of see it's that crinkly bit on there. And I just kind of put some up in here on the stem. We've got this really pretty gold viney coming out. And then we've got some sequences. So yeah, isn't that just gorgeous? And I kind of went light on the gold, but you could add as much as you want. This stuff goes a long ways. So let me put that aside and let's talk about what comes in the box now that we've kind of shown you the surprise. Okay, so your insert, obviously, every month is the same. You've got just a reminder to schedule yourself. I know we're all busy. Heck, sometimes I even have trouble finding time to craft, but it is so important for our mental health to just get into doing something that we love so that we can de-stress, we can focus on something else. It kind of clears our mental desk there. So schedule yourself time and make it important and let everybody else know about it so you get that time. It's not a surprise. Don't feel guilty about it either. That's a big thing, especially with moms, to feel guilty for crafting. Don't do that. It's what is the saying? You can't serve others with an empty cup. So make sure to fill your cup up. When you're ready to, the video tutorials will be in the Facebook group or on our website. The links for those are here. Open your box right away, inspect it, and let me know if anything is missing or broken. We'll send you a replacement as soon as possible. And then, as always, share in the group. I love seeing what you guys do. I love seeing your spin on it. I love seeing your style. And so let's inspire one another and share our creations in the group. It is a safe, judgment-free place. So okay, so this month's box includes, you're going to have your wood pieces. So this is your base. It does have the cutout at the top for hanging if you want to hang it, or it can just be a shelf sitter. Then you've got your frame, you've got your pumpkin piece, and then the stem, and then the 5 pumpkin pieces that sit on the top here. And then the autumn vibes, and this is in a protective block. We call it a protective block. I'm just gonna punch that out real quick. I think most of them, when I was cutting them, they just fell out, so I don't know if you're gonna have to punch them out, but if you do need to punch them out, just use your fingers and carefully push them. Sometimes I like to go from front to back and find that spot that's got the little tab. But then you've got your little letters that you can pop out of that block. And then you can toss this or use it for something else if you have an idea for that. Okay, so that's your wood pieces. You also have a little baggie in here that's got your wire to create that fun gold vine. You'll have a 12-inch piece of wire. You've got some sequences in there. Now I put my sequence, I strung them onto my wire. So you can kind of see them there. They're kind of just in my curly cues there. But you could also just glue them directly on your pumpkin, or maybe kind of floating around in the background. So you've got quite a few there that you can do with what you want. And then the little leaf cutouts, everyone got something a little bit different, but I thought these were cute to add to your project. You could tie them to the wire. You can paint them and glue them on. You could have them kind of maybe just sitting at the bottom here. You know how sometimes you've got little leaves that have fallen, or maybe a grouping of leaves along the bottom. You could glue them at the top, but you'll have 3 of those pieces. And they're all a little different, so you might get 2 cutouts and a solid. You might get 2 solids and a cutout. We kind of just grabbed and put them in a bag and kept them random. So that's what's in this little baggie here. You'll have that, and then you'll have another baggie that has your gold foil. Now, I recommend that you don't play with this until you're ready, because it is very thin and wrinkles and tears very easy. But you'll have a piece of paper underneath it, then you'll have this tissue paper, and this is what it looks like. And it also wants to curl as you lift that tissue paper away. So hold off on playing with that until you're ready to do so. But that is the gold foil in your box. And so that's what's going to come in your box. Let's talk about what you're going to need. So for this project, I am using the burnt umber for my background. This is just a white. I've taken the tag is off. Any white will do. Any black. And then I also have a gold. You are going to need some makeup wedges, which I don't have out. Let me grab that. So just really one makeup wedge for the letters. I'm going to use a large flat brush for painting the bigger pieces. The bigger the brush, the bigger the brush stroke, and it kind of goes a little faster. You wouldn't want to paint all of your pieces with a brush that's small like this. Well, maybe these little ones, that would work. But you know, if something big, a big surface, you want to use a bigger brush. And then to get this, it's an ombre kind of drippy look here with the gold and the brown, and a mix of white and black. I used just a round brush like this and just kind of streaked it on. While it was still wet, where is it? I did use a chip brush to kind of drag those colors together. So do I have chip brush on here? I don't think I have chip brush on my list. It isn't really necessary, and that just is a preference. If you wanted to really blend those colors, you could use a chip brush for this. So you're going to need some sort of glue. It does not have to be wood glue. It has to be a clear drying glue. I highly recommend that. It can be wood glue, all-purpose glue, Aleene's tacky glue, super glue if you want. And then you'll need Mod Podge. And I use Mod Podge to put the gold foil on. If you don't have Mod Podge, you can use an all-purpose glue or even just like a Elmer's school glue. I'm just looking at my shelf over here to see what I have up there. I don't have my Elmer's glue up there, but that works for the gold foil process. I have scissors down, and mostly that's if you wanted to cut your wire. Maybe you don't want to use obviously fabric scissors when you're cutting your wire, but maybe even some wire cutters or something. But it is a really light gauge, so you can cut that and shorten it up if you want, or make multiple little pieces that are kind of sticking out everywhere with a pair of scissors. Masking tape you'll need to hold the autumn vibes. letters while we paint those. Baby wipes, we do the faux stain on the background. I did that brown stain there, so I used the baby wipes for that. Sanding block to distress my frame and kind of smooth things out as needed. I did do a faux white stain on the frame as well, and then I sanded it down to reveal even more of that wood grain, just to soften the white up. Where was I? Sand block, water rinse cup to rinse your brushes, your paint palette, rags paper towels for cleanup, and then last but not least, a blow dryer. If you want to speed the process up, that comes in really handy. So those are the supplies that we're going to need. Also remember, if you scan this when you're getting ready to craft, this code will take you directly to the Facebook group. And then obviously the links for the tutorials on our website are there if you want to stay off Facebook when you're crafting. Sometimes being on Facebook with all the notifications can be a little distracting. And so we offer the tutorials on our website too, to kind of have a no social media time. So that is it, guys. Again, if you're catching this on the replay, drop your comments, any ideas that you might have for any ideas for me on how I can present the information to you better, where it would be less overwhelmed for you guys. Hopefully this system works great. We'll see how it goes. I'll talk to you guys later. Happy crafting, guys. Bye. Hey guys, Birdie here, and we are going to do our September Joy Box today. I'm going to paint, or stain, I should say, my base, and I'm going to stain my frame. I'm going to stain using a faux stain technique, and I'm using burnt umber, apple barrels, burnt umber, any burnt umber, dark brown that you like will work. And then I'm going to use just a white for my frame. Now for the stained look, you can use this technique with any color you have, whether it be a dark brown, a light brown, a gray, and any color. You can go teal, green, orange, whatever color scheme that you want. You can use the faux stained method for this. For the stained method, I am using baby wipes. And baby wipes are great because they're already wet, so they really help push that paint around and create that stained look. You can use paper towels, damp paper towels, but I do recommend they be a higher quality because this is wood. I've noticed in some paper towels, if they're a lower quality and they're damp, they kind of just shred and fall apart on you. And baby wipes are great because they don't. They're kind of a really tough material. They're a lot tougher than paper towels. You could also use a damp rag, something that you maybe wash and keep for projects like this, or, you know, an old mismatched sock that you just want to toss works as well. So I loaded up paint on my baby wipe, and now I'm just rubbing it on my surface. And you can use as little paint as you want, and kind of get a lighter color. And then if you want it to be darker, just add a little more paint on top, but you're just creating this faux stained look. So you can see as I'm rubbing it on, I'm still able to see that gorgeous wood grain, and that's the look I'm after. All right, so there is the backer. It looks kind of splotchy right now because it's still pretty wet, but it should dry nice. And if you need to go back with the second coat to kind of smooth out the color a little bit, you can do that once it dries, but I always start with just a light coat and then work my way up from that. Then we're going to do the frame next. And I am doing another faux stain. I'm going to use white on this. So again, baby white. And we're just going to rub that wipe on, or the white. I love using white as a faux stain. I think it looks really cool, kind of a whitewashed look on your wood. Okay, there we are. And that is it for the stain for our first coat. So to prep for these pieces, I am going to start by painting my little letters. And when I'm painting small items, I like to use masking tape, and I use the sticky side up. So I lay it on my table, sticky side up, and then I'll place my little items on here. And if there's letters or phrases or anything, I like to put them in the order in which I would read them, just to ensure that I'm painting the right side. And so the tape helps me hold the pieces as I paint them, and can act as a tray as well for tiny pieces, so we don't lose those. So if you're going to incorporate your little leaves, let me bring those out too. We can tape those down as well now at this time. So I'm going to use a makeup sponge for my little letters. I use a makeup sponge exclusively for all my little items. And I also like to cut my makeup sponge down. So let me bring out a full-size makeup sponge. So this is a makeup sponge that you would get out of the package. This is a full-sized piece. I like to cut mine in half. I hold it by the skinny piece of the wedge, and I use this fatter area as my applicator. So I hold it like this, and I cut it in half because this is a really big surface for painting small pieces, and I don't need all of this surface for painting. And so I'm able to just cut it down and get 2 applications out of that. And then I'll even take it a step further, and as my pieces, as I finish my project, I'll cut the tip off and use it again. Instead of washing it, I just cut the painted part off and throw it in my bucket. So you can kind of see here I have a bunch of just half pieces. Here's one that's, I think I can get one more application out of this. So these makeup sponges can really go a long way. So I'm going to take my makeup wedge and paint my autumn vibes with white. And when I'm painting with the makeup wedge, there's a technique I like to use. It's called loading and offloading. And that allows my makeup wedge to kind of soak that paint in without using too much paint to get goopy. So I'll load it up. And when I load it up, I tend to get tons of paint on the end when you stick it in your paint spot, right? You've got so much paint on there. You can see it glooping up. But what I want to do is offload it. So I'll find a clean spot on my palette, and I'll just tap, 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 tap. That's helping that paint get inside my makeup wedge. And now you can see that my makeup wedge is super clean. I mean, it looks like I don't have paint on there because it's white paint, but there I can see here that the paint is kind of soaked into the end. The reason I do that is because one, I don't want to have mess on my piece. I don't want to have all that paint falling off the edge. I don't paint the edge of my letters or the edges of really anything. I like to leave them dark. It helps them pop off the piece. It helps them create that 3D effect and gives that dimension. And also, I don't want to try and paint in all of these little cracks and crevices and these little holes. So I literally just paint the top of that. And to do so, with this just having that small amount of paint on there, I can take my makeup wedge and just do a tap, tap, tap on the top. I'm using just a light to medium pressure. I don't want to press it so hard that it kind of falls over the edge of my letters. I'm just painting those top pieces. And as you're painting your pieces, remember to do light coats. You want to start with just a light coat, let it dry, and then come back with a second coat to really give it a nice finish. If you try to glob on too much paint, that paint's going to fall off the edge and it's not going to have a nice smooth finish. So you can see how my edges stayed nice and clean. And it's not the best. It's kind of splotchy right now because it is that first coat, but the second coat is going to take care of that. So think of your first coat as a primer. When you're priming a wall or you're priming something to paint, using a primer, it never looks great, that first coat. But then when you get that second coat on, it looks fantastic. So that is that for right now. I'm going to set that aside and let it dry, and then I'll come back with the second coat. Okay, so let's put our second coat on this. The thing with using light coats is acrylic paint dries so fast that you might be thinking, oh, I don't have time for a second coat. But really, if you do a light coat, that paint should dry within minutes. And then you can go back with your second coat and it's done. So there we are. This letter section is done. And if you're still rushed for time and getting things to dry seems overwhelming and just too much, you have a blow dryer on hand and blast it with some heat, and that stuff will dry super fast. Okay, we're going to paint the pumpkin next. And I'm going to paint my base black. So when I'm putting my pieces on here, you do see the outline through these pumpkin pieces. And so I want to see those as black. You could paint this white, orange, whatever color you want. But I'm going to start with black here, and then I'll paint my pieces. One thing I want to point out is these pieces are very specific to their spots. They're not interchangeable, and they're not, you can't flip them and have them fit. So as you're getting ready to paint your pieces, before you do so, lay them on your pumpkin and use the outline to line those pieces up to ensure you're painting the right piece. You don't want to accidentally have this one be over here thinking it goes there. If you've painted the wrong piece, if you accidentally do that, not a big deal. You can paint the backside, but to save yourself some time, lay them out so you know which pieces you're painting first. Okay. So I'm really just focusing on the areas that are going to be seen. And with black paint, because it's so full of pigment, that I know I only need one coat for this puppy. The pieces, the outline of the pumpkin pieces are scored in. So you don't have to be careful about painting inside the lines. We will still be able to see those even after you paint them. So my laser goes through and creates a cut Gosh, I couldn't even say how deep it is. It's probably 0.12 inches inside the wood. So it takes a lot of paint to fill those score marks. So don't worry about having, painting inside the line. You'll still be able to see those even after painting. So if I bring that up to you, you can see, let me change the angle there. See how we can still see those score marks? So we'll still be able to line up our pumpkin pieces on top even after the fact. Okay, so that piece is done, and paint my pumpkin pieces. So I'm going to start with the stem, and I'm going to paint that brown. I do end up painting gold over it as a second coat in the next step. But I like to have the brown under the gold because I feel like it gives it more of an aged gold look. If you're going for more of a bright gold look, you can just go right into painting it gold to start with. Having the brown under the gold just gives it kind of a bronzy / aged color. Okay, so then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paint my pumpkin pieces white. All right, so we are ready to put a second coat on. I don't need a second coat for my black. I'm not going to put a second coat on my stem, but we are ready for our second coat on our pumpkin. And depending on the color that you choose to paint your pumpkin, you might not need a second coat, or if you decided to paint your base white, you might need a second coat. So it's just going to be the color you choose, and the type of paint you use can affect if you're going to need a second coat or not. So keep in mind that as you're painting, if you feel you need a second coat or you don't need a second coat, do what's best for your project. You do not have to follow exactly what I'm doing. I'm here just as a guide to help you get your craft on, in hopes to inspire you and find your style, all those things. And so you're just going to have to kind of see how your project is going in terms of whether you want a second 1, 2, or 3 coats, depending on the look that you're after and the colors you use. There we go. When you're gluing your pieces together, you want to use a wood glue that is clear drying, which we talked about in the unboxing, and also it's listed in the general supplies on what type of glue you should get. I'm using this super wood glue from, I think I got this bottle at the Dollar Tree, and it does dry clear. So it's kind of a great deal, actually. Anyways, it doesn't have to be wood glue. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop some glue on here. Remember, glue goes a long way. You don't want so much that it squirts out the sides and kind of makes a mess. So I kind of like to spread it around. Unless I'm using like a super glue, then I don't touch it. It just gets a couple drops. So if you're using a super glue, don't try and spread that around. All it needs is those few drops on top, on the back. Okay. And I'm going to line it up. And I'm just going to look for those score marks. Essentially, what we want to be doing is putting it on our piece so we don't see those score marks. It should sit right on there that those score marks just disappear. So I kind of look at it from all angles to line those pieces up. Okay, so now that our piece is glued, everything is dried, we can start decorating this little pumpkin with our kind of drippy paint, and then also using the foil. So I'm going to bring my foil out here. And I'm going to start by adding some color to my pumpkin. So I'm going to grab my, just a round brush. This is a medium-sized round brush. You can also use a flat brush, whatever you have around this size. I'm going to start by adding, and I'm also going to get my, let me bring out my chip brush because I want to show you a technique here. I'm going to start by adding gold and browns and blacks, and I kind of want it a little thick. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to just start by adding some little brush strokes here, and I'm going to do it on these first two because I want to move a little bit fast. And then I'm going to grab some brown. I'm not going to wash my brush in this process. If you want to have a couple brushes on hand, that's fine. But we're going to do that. I'm going to add just a few little bits of black drops there. And then I might even pick up some white. So you kind of want to use a little bit of a thicker coat on this. I'm going to drop some white in there. Again, it's going to blend a little bit with the color on my brush already, but that's okay. So you can kind of see it's still fairly wet, right? Well, then I'm going to take my chip brush and I'm going to just drag it down and up and kind of blend those colors. Isn't that cool looking? I love how it just kind of gives it that almost drippy, great look. So I'm going to do that with the other ones. The key to this technique, though, is to move quickly. You don't want your paint to dry too fast. And again, acrylic paint dries extremely fast. You want it thick enough so it doesn't dry too quickly on you. And you need to move fast-ish. Okay? So we just got these little bits of color here. I'm just going to drop some white on there. It's going to blend, but that white just kind of helps it blend into the background. And you can do this with really any color scheme. And I'm just going to drop a few bits of black. Black is really powerful, so do be careful about adding too much black because it can kind of make the whole thing look a little muddy. Okay, so I'm going to start from the bottom. I'm just going to drag it up. And I'm using a super light pressure, so I don't want to over blend those colors, but I want them to look drippy, scrapey. Okay. And then if you want to pull out, you know, a certain color, maybe you want that gold to be popped out, you know, pop out a little more, let this dry and come back in with a second coat. I'm just going to pull that color down just a little bit more down my pumpkin. I'm using a very light pressure with this chip brush. You can see I kind of pulled that down just a little bit. So that look very, I love that look. There we go. We've got that fun scrapey look. All right, so we're gonna let this dry and then we're gonna come back on with our gold foil. While that's drying, I am gonna paint my stem gold. Just using my brush here, gave it a quick wash. I'm going to come in and lay some gold on that dark brown stem. And like I said earlier, I like putting brown under my gold sometimes, just because I feel like it gives it that old, aged gold look. And if you wanted a more shiny, solid, bright gold, do not put brown under it. Just let it be the natural wood color, and that will give you a good gold color. And you can add as many coats as you want. Sometimes the metallic golds are a little transparent, and so they do require a few coats to get that bright metallic color you're after. You can kind of see how that brown under there just kind of makes it look a little aged, and especially compared to the gold in my streaks here. Okay, now we're ready to apply our gold foil. Now the gold foil is super fragile, and when you go to handle it, know that it will start to crumble under your fingertips. Just be aware of that. So what I'm going to start with is we need to lay down some glue to put our foil on for it to stick. I'm going to use Mod Podge for that, and I'm just going to drop some on my palette over here. And I'm going to grab a old paintbrush. I know I have one here that's specifically for my... There it is. I try and use the same brush all the time for gluing purposes, so I don't ruin all my brushes, because sometimes I forget about it. Now this is a little big. Just use this one. Okay, so I'm going to use a brush, and I'm going to just paint on where I want my gold foil. And you don't need a lot of glue, just a little. I'm going to kind of hit the tops of my pumpkin pieces here. Maybe have a little bit here. You can always add more if you want after the fact. You might want to just go light just to kind of see how it's going to look. I'm going to add some to my stem. Okay, all right. Then once you've got your glue laid down, we're going to take this foil. And like I said, it starts to kind of crinkle up. I want it to be crinkly, so I'm actually just going to kind of crinkle it up like this. I want to see those fun lines in there. And then I'm going to lay it down on my piece like this. I'm going to just tap. Now, if you had glue over here, it doesn't quite fit all the way. You can just grab some little pieces or just rip it and kind of place it on. Okay. And I'm just going to tap it, and then we're going to let it dry for a few minutes. Okay. And then what I take is a dry brush. Any brush will work. And once it's dried for a few minutes, we're just going to take that brush and brush away that excess. And it's going to break off any pieces that aren't glued down. Do you want to just make sure that it's dry? You just want to keep brushing it until you don't see any of that gold foil kind of flaking up. It'll keep just kind of breaking until it's to the point where it's completely stuck to your pieces from the Mod Podge, and then you're done. You can go through and seal it on if you're worried about it, but it shouldn't flake off. But you can put a coat of Mod Podge on top of the entire thing if you want to. Okay, let's clean up this mess here and then we'll get it all put together. Okay, let's put this all together. All our pieces are painted, so now we can start gluing it up. I'm going to start by gluing the frame on. And with this plywood, sometimes when we get it wet, it kind of creates this little flex in the frames. So it's really helpful to have some clamps or something heavy to help you hold the pieces down while the glue sets. A lot of times for the frames, I'll even resort to using a super glue because that can help speed the process along. So I've got my glue on there. Also take note that this is the hanger part, so make sure to, when we're gluing that pumpkin on and everything else, that that's at the top. And so if I look at this on the side, you can kind of see I've got some flex here in my frame and my base, but the glue will hold all that down. This type of plywood is very flexible. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start in a corner and using my clamps. And if you don't have clamps, something heavy like a book or a couple books, pots and pans, whatever, something with some weight to it. The other thing that you can use that I've had really good luck with, let me see if I can find one, are chip clips. So you can also use these. So I just want to make sure that it hasn't shifted on me before I get everything in place, because with it being glue, it also will want to try and shift a little bit, so you want to be careful of that. I'm going to start by getting all my corners, and then just because this one does have a little flex here, I'm going to clamp it there. Sometimes you don't need to have this many clamps. Again, it just kind of depends on the wood, but I'm going to clamp it at the corners and then at the inner pieces as well. Okay, so as that's clamped down, I can continue working on the middle. So I'm going to grab this beautiful pumpkin, finish dusting off my gold. I just tapped it into the garbage there. There we go. And I'm just going to set this in here and kind of see where it's going to go. And then I'm going to grab my letters. After taping them down, one of the key things is do not try and just lift these up super hard or tear out the tape, because these little letters are fragile and you don't want to break them. One of the things I found that works best is if I hold it in my fingers like this, and then I will even kind of go upside down and peel the tape away from the letter or the word or the phrase. So I kind of hold it right where I'm going to pull away, and then I just kind of work my way down, kind of giving that letter or those words some structure while I hold it, and then pull that away. All right, so here is where we're just going to kind of eyeball things and see where we want it. I find it helpful to stand up and above it. And then if you're still not sure, sometimes taking a picture of it from above and then looking at it through your phone can help you see things just even a little more clear. So we're just gonna, I think that looks pretty good. All right, so now that we've got it all in place, we've got our idea of where we want it, I'll just lift up my pieces And again, it's kind of best to kind of stand over the top to kind of really get an idea of where you want it. And that looks great. All right, so then for these little pieces, I would usually use a super glue that's got a fine tip on it or something other than that. If you don't have that, and you have something bigger like this, what I'll do is I'll put a dab of glue kind of in the big areas or the thicker parts of the letters, 2 or 3, and then I'll take my finger and then just tap that glue to other areas on the letter and kind of spread it out that way. And then I've got my glue there. Ready to go. Looks good. You can also create a, you could put some on your palette and then brush it on. That also works well too for smaller pieces. There we go. Okay. So the next part is you can add your little leaves pieces. Like I said, you could have them kind of bundled at the bottom. Maybe you have maybe 2 at the beginning of this autumn area, and then 1 at the back of the vibes. So you can kind of place them around the letters there, or you don't even have to use all 3. Maybe you just want to use the 2. However you want to do that, those could go there. They could get glued up at the top where your stem is, you know, maybe just on this wood back here. Maybe one over here. So you can kind of see how you can just rearrange those however you want. And I'm going to actually attach them to my wire, and I'll show you that here in just a minute. So those are ready to go. Let's get our wire out. In your bag, you also have a bunch of sequences, and you can use these. I'm going to attach mine to the wire, but you could just add a little more dimension and glue some little sequences around there. I also thought it would be cute to maybe just kind of have some random sequences kind of around the lettering or the phrase down below. You know, kind of just like little mini leaves maybe, or, you know, berries that are floating around. So you could do that. So again, use those how you want, but I'm going to show you how I'm going to attach them to my wire. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold my wire in half. I want to find the center-ish. Okay, so I've got my fold here. And then now I have 2 vines. And I'm going to grab a pencil or a marker or a brush handle, whatever you have. And I'm going to wrap my wire around that to create that curly Q. Let's see if I can show you that. That doesn't help very much. And then I'm going to gently pull it. I want it to be a little longer. I don't want it to be as tight of a curly Q. So I've kind of got this little viney bit here. Okay. And then I'm going to take my sequence and I'm just going to start threading it through those holes in the sequence. And I'm going to let it just kind of be random and have them just kind of float around that wire wherever they land. You could, did I get it on there? Yeah. You could kind of kink your wire where you want your sequences to land. If you wanted them to be at a certain area, you could wrap it around there. But once I get it all put together, I'll give my sign a little shake and my sequences will kind of randomly fall along my vine. Okay. So I'm doing 2 or 3 on each one. And then I'm going to take one of my leaves and put it on the end and just squeeze it to close that wire around the end of my leaf. And then I'll probably not use the solid one in this case, just because it'll be easier to wrap this other shape on my other one. Okay. Give it a little shake, get my sequences around. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a piece of glue. I want my wire or my vine to kind of come out of this little opening right here and kind of stick out that way. If you wanted yours to go the other way, you could do that. You could do 2, 1 on each side. And I'm going to drop a little bit of glue down in there to hold my wire in place. You can use regular glue for this, or if you have a glue gun, you could use that too. But I'm just going to stick that in there, and it will take a little bit for that glue to really wrap around that wire and set up. So just be gentle with your sign while that process takes hold. But there we go. Okay. And these ones are not attached down here, so let me see if I can pick those up. I might have to shake them off. There we go. All right, so my glue is set on my sign. We can take our clamps off. Everything is glued up, and we are done. So any of that flex in your frame, or I had a bunch of flex on here. It looked like my frame was kind of bubbling up, but glue is super powerful and really helps hold that flexible wood down. So there we go, guys. There is our Autumn Vibe pumpkin sign. I am so excited to see how you guys decorate yours. If you're gonna go for Halloween or fall, and really excited to see the colors that you use. So I hope you enjoy this craft. I hope you find time for yourself and crafting and enjoy that time. So I will talk to you later. Thanks again for joining, and happy crafting, guys. Bye.